All of the images that you are seeing on the screen right now were made using the Sony 50mm f2.5. If you have been following the channel for a while now, you will know that my A7C is my favorite camera. It's the camera that I take with me every day. And you'll know also that the 20mm is the lens that I keep attached to this camera about 80% of the time. The problem with the 20mm is that I am not someone who enjoys wide angle photography. And so I have set out to find the perfect lens for my A7C to be able to make the type of photography that I want. And so if you have been watching the channel lately, you know that I've been testing out the Sony 50mm f2.5 G lens. And the short answer about whether or not that lens is perfect for the A7C is absolutely, especially if you're someone who likes 50mm photography, such as myself. That could get a little different if you're someone who enjoys a wider frame, somewhere between 24 and 35, then it's probably not the lens for you. I think another thing to keep in mind is that this is a $600 lens, super affordable, and I think there's a lot of value. And so let's get into it. So the first thing that I didn't like about it is that it has a 49mm filter thread. I already have like filters that I have for my other primes. And so I have a 67mm like Earth ND filter. I didn't want to go out and buy a brand new filter for this lens, especially since I was just testing it out. And at 49mm, it makes it super hard to find step-up rings in the city. And so I had to scour the city for 2 step-up rings from 49 to get to 67. And I just think 49 is a little smaller than anyone's really used to. The second thing that I didn't like about it is that coming from the G Master lenses, the focusing speed of the lens was a little slower than I'm used to. And I know that somebody's gonna say, like, it seems unfair to kind of compare the focusing speed of a G Master lens to a $600 G lens. But I've been shooting with Sony lenses for a while now. I keep the 20mm on my camera all the time. And there was a noticeable difference between the focusing speeds of this 50mm, even my 20mm, which is also a G lens. And so I just feel like it's necessary for me to say in this video, since I am putting this video out and saying, like, hey, I think this is a great lens. The third thing that I didn't like about the lens is that it is only an f2.5 lens. And again, this comes from a person who is used to shooting with an f1.2, f1.4, f1.8. I am someone who enjoys doing night photography. We've talked about this a lot. And with my A7C not being as, low light capable as my A7 IV, I really rely on the fast, Aputure primes that I have to kind of carry the load of that low light kind of situation that I like to photograph in. And, just getting used to the 2.5 was something that I should probably bring up also. So with all of that being said, let's get into the things that I loved about the camera. About the lens when paired with the camera. One, it did make shooting photos super fun. There's something that is a little bit liberating when you are testing out gear that's just for yourself, that you're not going to use, to shoot client work with, or to try to make prints that you're going to try to sell. A lot of the time, the photos that I ended up taking with this lens and this camera combo were just pictures of my kids or pictures of, Transformers when I was downtown on Navy Pier. And so it did just make, putting the camera up to my eye and shooting photos super fun again. And that was the point. I want to find a lens that I can keep on my A7C that would allow me to just make photos. These next 3 things that I loved about this lens goes back to the fact that this is only a $600 lens. And I'm positive that we can even find it for like $550 or $525. It goes back to the value of the lens. And so this next thing is the fact that Sony didn't skimp out on any of the bells and whistles that we've come to know with their lenses. So for this $600 lens, you still had an aperture ring on it. You still had a switch that switched it from, clicking and non-clicking. You still had a focus hold button. You still had a switch that switched it from manual to autofocus, and that was a focus ring. So for $600, you still got all of the things that make Sony lenses really valuable, in my opinion. And so then the next thing, it's just the size and weight of it. When paired with this, this A7C, it was super small. Up until then, the 20mm was the smallest lens that I had in my bag, or that I put on this A7C, and that 50mm makes this 20mm feel like a 24-70. Like, it was that light, it was that easy to carry. And so I really loved that about that lens. And then the last thing that I loved about it is even though it didn't do well in low light, I loved the fact that it was a 2.5 for the price point. Usually when you get into that price point, you're looking at something like a 2.8 or something like an f4 when it's a good lens. Not that 50mm f1.8 that Sony sells still for $250. That lens is trash. Do not buy that lens. It's absolute garbage. But this f2.5, I thought, for $600 was really, really a good price point. And so those are the things that I love about the lens. Like I said, if you're not someone who enjoys 50mm photography, maybe this isn't the lens for you. But if you have an A7C and you're looking for a 50mm and you can't afford the G Masters, I think this is the lens to go. I didn't keep it. I didn't keep it yet because there are 2 more lenses that I want to test out before I decide on this next lens purchase. There were times when shooting with this 50mm that I thought, I wish this frame was a little wider. And so I will be testing the 40mm lens that Sony put out. I think it's an f2.5 also, because I think that'll give, just a little bit, wider of a field of view. Not too much wider, but a little bit. And then I also want to test out the Samyang 35mm f2.5 because that lens is a pancake lens. And remember, the goal is to try to keep this thing as small, compact, and pocketable as I possibly can. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Let's have a conversation. And yeah, stay tuned if you guys want to hear about those other 2 lenses. Other than that, this is a boy named Jamil. I'm Jamil, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.